Aston Martin has just made a financial move so large that experts are calling it one of the biggest transactions in F1 history. The number itself is astonishing, but the real drama lies in who might be behind the deal. So what's the story here, and how did it happen? Let's find out in today's special episode. To understand why this is such a dramatic moment, it is important to start with what happened just 3 weeks ago. Christian Horner, who had been the face and guiding force of Red Bull Reading for 2 decades, was suddenly removed from his position. For 20 years, he had led the team to extraordinary success, winning 8 drivers' championships and 6 constructors' titles, and transforming Red Bull from a new entrant into the most dominant force of the modern era. His departure shocked the entire Formula One community. It was not due to poor performance, as Red Bull remained at the top. Instead, it came after months of internal disputes about control of the team. Yesterday, Aston Martin Lagonda Global Holdings, the British luxury car manufacturer famous for supplying cars to James Bond films, announced that it had sold its entire stake in the Aston Martin Formula One team. This might surprise some people because many assume the car company owns the F1 team outright. In reality, the situation is more complex. The Formula One team is mostly controlled by Canadian billionaire Lawrence Stroll, who led a consortium to purchase the struggling Force India team in 2018 for $117 million. He rebranded it first as Racing Point and then as Aston Martin after investing in car company itself. The car manufacturer only owned a small 4.6% minority stake in the racing operation. That minority stake has now been sold for $146 million. This figure places the overall valuation of the team at $3.2 billion. To put this into perspective, Lawrence Stroll's original investment of $117 million has multiplied almost 27 times in just 7 years. That is a return of more than 2,700%, an almost unheard of rate of growth in such a short period of time. The real point of interest is the buyer of this stake. Whoever it is, they are keeping their identity completely secret. This is highly unusual in Formula One, where buying into a team is normally a public declaration of prestige and influence. Most investors want the world to know they are part of the sport's inner circle. When Mercedes sold part of its team, or when Alpine welcomed new American investors, such secrecy suggests there is more going on behind the scenes. Spending $146 million without attaching a name to the purchase points to something bigger than a standard investment. Many people believe Christian Horner could be connected to this. The timing makes the theory even stronger. Only 3 weeks after being forced out of the team he built from the ground up, a mystery buyer appears and takes a stake in one of Red Bull's rising rivals. Aston Martin has been making strong moves in recent years, signing experienced drivers like Fernando Alonso, upgrading their facilities, and showing clear ambitions to fight for wins. If Horner wanted to make a statement after his dismissal, becoming part of such a team would be a powerful move. The situation at Red Bull that led to all this was not sudden. For a long time, Horner had been pushing the Austrian headquarters for more authority over the team's decisions. He also wanted some form of ownership stake in the operation he had helped build into a world champion. Things changed when the Red Bull ownership structure shifted. The Thai side of the Red Bull empire, led by the Uvidya family, reduced their influence. This gave more control to the Austrian base. That restructuring meant Horner's position became weaker and eventually expendable. Even before the news broke that he was being moved aside, people in the sport were already discussing his ambitions. Martin Brundle, the respected F1 commentator and former driver, made remarks weeks earlier that now look almost like he knew what was coming. Brundle said Horner would want full control in the future and would likely return to F1 with some kind of ownership role. At the time, it sounded like guesswork. Now it feels like a direct hint. One important part of this story is Horner's legal status. Red Bull has placed him on what is called gardening leave until January 2026. That means he cannot work for another F1 team during that time. But there is a key detail. Gardening leave rules usually stop someone from taking an active job at a rival. They do not normally prevent a person from investing in a team or owning a share of it. This means Horner could buy into an F1 team tomorrow without breaking any Red Bull agreements. If Horner really is the secret Aston Martin buyer, this would explain why the process has been surrounded by unusual secrecy. Revealing his identity now could cause legal or political issues, and maybe even trigger trouble with regulators. By keeping quiet until his gardening leave ends, Aston Martin and Horner would be avoiding unnecessary risks. People close to him have also been far more silent than usual. Horner has always been outspoken in public, but now there are no comments about his future. This silence is likely not because he has no plan, but because he is bound by confidentiality agreements.
Aston Martin's search for this investor has been led by the investment bank Rain Group. They said they want someone who can bring long-term value, not just money. This is not just about selling a piece of the team. It is about finding a partner who will help them compete for championships. Doing this in such a closed and controlled way suggests that the buyer is someone high-profile, whose name could instantly cause headlines across the world. The timing is perfect for someone like Horner to make this move. Formula One will introduce its biggest technical regulation changes in more than 10 years in 2026. This includes a completely new power unit formula and fresh aerodynamic rules. These changes will reset the competitive order and create a rare opportunity for a team to jump from the midfield to the front. Horner's experience in building a championship team from scratch makes him a perfect fit for a team like Aston Martin, aiming to use the 2026 reset to challenge for titles. Horner spent 2 decades at Red Bull. He knows exactly how to create a winning culture. He has deep ties with suppliers and partners and understands how to work the politics of Formula One to a team's advantage. One of the most important points is that he worked closely with Adrian Newey for many years. Newey is widely regarded as the greatest car designer in F1 history. This year, Newey moved to Aston Martin to lead their 2026 car project. If Horner joined Aston Martin's ownership structure, the two would be reunited. That partnership had already produced multiple championships at Red Bull. The Honda connection makes the theory even more believable. Honda will leave Red Bull and become Aston Martin's engine supplier in 2026. Horner was the man who oversaw the Red Bull-Honda partnership that delivered championships with Max Verstappen. He knows Honda's strengths, weaknesses, and corporate style. That knowledge would make the Aston Martin-Honda relationship far smoother in the early years and give them a competitive edge. From Lawrence Stroll's perspective as team owner, this move would be smart. Stroll is 65 years old and has built Aston Martin piece by piece into a potential contender. He has invested in a world-class factory in Silverstone. He has secured the Honda partnership. He has brought in Adrian Newey. The only missing piece is an experienced leader who has actually won titles in the modern era. Horner fits that description perfectly, and could also act as a long-term successor if Stroll ever chooses to reduce his direct involvement. There are small hints in the paddock that support the idea. Fernando Alonso, normally quick to comment on team politics, has been unusually polite and quiet about Aston Martin's future direction. Honda executives have been attending Aston Martin meetings, more than would be expected for a team that is still technically just a future partner. Even Newey, who rarely talks about business matters, has been asking about ownership structures. The financial state of Aston Martin Lagonda also plays an important role in this story. Over the past year, the company's stock price has fallen by 50%. Revenue dropped by 34% in the last quarter. On top of that, new United States tariffs have made their luxury cars significantly more expensive for American buyers. They urgently needed to bring in cash, and selling their minority stake in the F1 team was a straightforward way to do it. This urgency could have allowed someone with both resources and motivation to strike at the perfect moment. Keeping the buyer's name secret could be a strategic decision. If the investor is indeed Christian Horner, or someone working closely with him, remaining anonymous would avoid immediate backlash. Revealing the connection too early could spark a political storm, not only with Red Bull, but with other influential figures in the sport. Horner's knowledge and resources make this theory very plausible. After 2 decades of running one of the most successful teams in Formula One history, he knows the business side of the sport as well as anyone. He understands the value of ownership stakes, the competitive potential of certain teams, and the power that comes with shaping a team's future. Joining Aston Martin would allow him to use that knowledge to challenge the organization that removed him. There are, of course, other possibilities. The mystery buyer could be another billionaire who wants to enter the sport quietly before making a public announcement later. It could be a corporation planning a long-term marketing partnership with Aston Martin. However, the closeness and timing between Horner's exit from Red Bull and this purchase is impossible for many observers to ignore.
But now, let's also talk about how McLaren has managed to not just improve, but dominate in 2025 with a car that seems to deliver almost every single weekend. The journey from their 2023 struggles to becoming the top team in Formula One has been full of technical lessons, strategic risks, and a lot of precise decision-making. At the heart of it all is one simple but incredibly difficult concept: correlation. This is the connection between what a team sees in the wind tunnel, computer simulations, and other development tools, and what actually happens when the car hits the track.
McLaren's rise really began midway through the 2023 season. Before the Austrian Grand Prix that year, they were fighting for the lower points positions and often missing the top 10. But with a big update package for that race, they suddenly jumped into podium contention. That change was not a fluke. It was the result of a restructured technical team, better organization, and new methods of understanding how the car's aerodynamics and mechanical systems work together. By the time the 2024 season came, they had a car, the MCL38, that started closer to the front of the grid. Even so, it wasn't until a floor upgrade in Miami that they found the form that would win them the Constructors' Championship. When 2025 started, McLaren introduced the MCL39, a car that from the very first races showed it was the best on the grid. Rivals like Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes have tried to close the gap, but McLaren's updates seem to click perfectly almost every time. Team principal Andrea Stella has explained that there's no magic trick behind it. Instead, it's about perfecting the basics, what he calls the fundamentals. This includes not just having great ideas for new parts, but having strong processes for testing those ideas, understanding when they are likely to work, and making sure the transition from design to reality matches expectations. Stella also admits that he was surprised by just how competitive the MCL39 turned out to be. Going into the season, McLaren's target was to break free from the uncertainty of 2024, when any of the top teams could win on a given weekend. They wanted to be the clear favorite. To do that, they took what he called an aggressive approach to innovation, pushing for new ideas that even the engineering team felt nervous about at times. The MCL39, as a result, is full of bold technical solutions. At the start of the year, they thought the lap times and simulation data might not give them enough of a margin over their rivals. But with continuous upgrades through the season, the car has become even stronger than they first imagined. One of the big advantages McLaren has right now is how quickly they can adapt. In Formula One, a tenth of a second per lap can be the difference between pole position and starting on the third row of the grid. McLaren's ability to test, verify, and deploy upgrades with minimal delay means they can gain those extra tenths while other teams are still ironing out problems. Even small updates, like adjustments to the floor edges or rear wing elements, can be worth significant performance gains over a season. Another important factor is the people. Stella has been clear that even the best methods are useless without the right engineers and designers to lead them. McLaren has invested heavily, not just in technology, but in building a team of highly skilled staff. He describes himself as lucky to work with competent leaders and talented individuals across the technical department. This human element is crucial because while computers and simulations can give a lot of information, interpreting that data correctly and making the right decisions still depends on human expertise. Even so, Stella says that McLaren doesn't assume they have solved everything. The work on correlation, aerodynamics, and mechanical design is ongoing. In Formula One, even a small slip in development can see a team's advantage vanish within a few races. Rivals like Red Bull are known for rapid in-season improvement, and Ferrari has made big steps in areas like straight-line speed. Mercedes, too, has been working on new concepts that could pay off in the latter part of the year. McLaren's task is to stay ahead, and that means not relaxing even with their current dominance. As always, don't forget to comment down your thoughts on this situation. And while you're down there, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more upcoming updates.